Alright, in this video we are going to use the quadratic formula with complex solutions. So you need to be careful, but it's not a big deal here. When you get a complex solution, what we're going to do is use this rule. We're going to get rid of the negative by saying that radical -1 equals to I. Now first, before I get started, keep in mind that there are going to be two different outcomes. Outcome number one is when the radical inside, you're not allowed to simplify it. And outcome number two is when the radical inside, you are allowed to simplify it, the number inside the radical. So in this case, you have radical -10. Clearly, the negative in here, what you're going to say is, what give you -10? Radical -1 times radical 10. Radical 10 happens that you cannot simplify it because you don't have a number from the family of perfect square that is a multiple of 10. So in this case, all you're going to say is, what is the square root of -1? I outside, and radical 10 stays on the inside. Now in this case here, you are allowed to write the I before or after the radical, but make sure it's outside the radical so that you don't make that mistake. Alright, so that's case number one. How about case number two here? You have radical -24. Once again, the negative becomes radical -1. But be careful, unlike number 10, there is a number that belongs to 24 from the family of perfect square. And that number, which is the highest and the only one that belongs to 24, is going to be 4. Because 4 times 6 is 24, and obviously 4 is a perfect square. So in this case, how are you writing the answer on the outside? You see, unlike the previous one that was only I, in here make sure that you take out radical 4 first. What is the square root of 4? 2. And now you're going to say that radical -1 give you the I, so you're going to say 2I. And radical 6 stays on the inside. And that's basically the end of that. Now let's go here. We're going to try this example here, a quadratic equation, 2x to the 4 plus 4x equals to -5. Let's talk about the steps that you always need to follow if you want to get a proper answer. Step number one is make sure that the quadratic equation is equal to 1. 0 here. Why? Because you want to find A, B, and C. You want to find the proper numbers. So for this equation here, it's not difficult. We're going to use, rules of equality. In order for you to get rid of the negative sign, we're going to use the addition property of equality, which is going to be +5 on both sides. And 5 minus 5 give you the 0 that you're looking for. And then the 5 goes at the end here because there are no like terms. So in this case now, you should be able now to find A, B, and C properly. So you got A equals 2, B equals to 4, and C equals to 5. Don't forget, it's never changing. That's basically the rule there. Now, what I like to do here is, I don't like using A, B, and C, at least in the beginning when you learn this. When you get comfortable, just go ahead and do it. But in the beginning, be careful, because more likely you're going to end up making a mistake inside the radical. So that should be your step one, to find a discriminant here, which is b squared minus 4ac. And one way that I like to do it is that for each letter here, I always open a parenthesis to make it easier for you to evaluate, the numbers that you're supposed to replace. So instead of saying b squared, parenthesis to the second, minus 4, this is part of the formula here, discriminant. A, you open parenthesis here, and for C, you open parenthesis there. So now, this is not a guessing game. Make sure that you say here to yourself, what is B equals to from what you did before on step 1? B equals to 4. How about A? 2. And how about C here? 5. Use a calculator here with parentheses, and 100% of the time, if you set it up properly, you're going to end up getting the correct solution here. If you notice, we got negative 24. And that's why I already explained negative 24 on top here. So keep that in mind. Now let me use the entire formula here. When using that formula here, make sure that you follow that sign, you see, because this is like a major problem in some cases. This is negative b. This negative don't have to do anything with b. It's outside b. So that's what you're going to say here. Negative, and then you're going to open parentheses here. And then you're going to say plus and minus the radical here. The inside, that's what we did already for step 2, which is negative 24. Everything is divided by 2 times a, so you're going to say 2. You're going to open parentheses here. But what is letter a equals to from step 1? 2. So a negative times a positive will give you a negative. Positive, negative. Radical negative 24. 2 times 2 is 4. And again, you need to fix this problem. We already did ahead of time. So, and also my advice to you is, if this happens, that you know that you are allowed to simplify that radical. Maybe it's better for you to do it on the side like that, and then bring the answer back when you finish it. Once you do that, more likely you're gonna end up having a relationship with what you're taking out in the denominator. So in order, and clearly here you see that there's a relationship with 4 and 2. But the best way to see it is for you to divide each numerator by the denominator. So like that you don't get confused. In this case, you're going to say negative 4 divided by 4 plus and minus 2i radical 6 divided by 4. And now this is an easy one. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. Positive, negative. In here, be careful, because in some cases, if you get careless, you might think that 2 divided by 4 is 2, but it's not. If you notice, the highest number is in the denominator, so the best way to do this one is for you to say, what is the highest number that is divisible by 2 and 4? And clearly, it's going to be 2. See, 2 goes into 2 how many times? 1 time, so you're going to say this becomes 1i. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And the radical 6 stays there. This is actually your final answer. But if this is, let's say, like a short answer, you can just leave it like that. But let's say that this is like a multiple choice test that you take in a Regents, and you don't see the answer. More likely, it's because they decided to use the 2 operation signs here, because there are 2 solutions. So the first one is negative 1 plus I radical 6 divided by 2. And the other one is negative 1 minus I radical 6 divided by 2. All right, so I hope that this video helped you out, and wait for the next one.